Welcome to Battle Creek Public Schools Board of Education meeting. Today is Monday, July 29th, 2024. It is now 5:30 p.m. We will now ask the secretary to please call the roll.
Dr. Alicia Johnson. Here. Dr. Nicole Perry.
Present.
Catherine LaValle.
Here.
Nathan Graycheck. Art McClinney. Charlie Fulbright.
Present.
Patty Fulgray.
Present. The chair will now entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda, considerations for additions or deletions.
Madam President,
Yes, trustee Fulbright.
I move that we approve the agenda as written.
Support. It's been moved by trustee Fulbright, supported by trustee LaValle, that we approve the agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. We'll now move down to public comment. The Battle Creek Public School Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the community to express themselves on district matters. We have two opportunities on our agenda tonight for public comment. The Board of Education requests you fill out a public participation form with contact information. As you come to the microphone, please state your name. Each statement made by a speaker shall be limited to a 3-minute duration. If the speaker represents a group, the person will be given 5 minutes to speak. Battle Creek Public Schools Board of Education will listen, take comments and questions under advisement, and not respond at this time. Public commenters will direct all comments to the Board of Education, not to staff or other participants. We will now have Jamisha Nordstrom, please. Jamisha.
Thank you for allowing me to address the board this evening. I am a candidate for school board for the upcoming year. I've been an educator for 18 years, spent 5 of the last years as a Bearcat at BC STEM. Before that, I worked for Ann Arbor Public Schools, Inkster Public Schools. I'm currently a professor at Grand Valley State University, so my career has kind of run from K through 12, and now I kind of look at my career as coming full circle as a candidate for school board. I look forward to continue to serve this community. My husband and I, we reside in this community. I am running for school board because I do believe in the changes that have been made and the direction in which the district is going, and I would love to continue to be a part of that.
Thank you. We will now hear from Ryan Jackson.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening. It's nice to see all of you. I'm Ryan Hoagland Jackson. I am running as well for Battle Creek Public School Board to join you on this amazing journey. I have a background as a paraprofessional at an autism therapeutic school. I've done that. I've done behavioral therapy. I have worked as a long-term substitute teacher in one of our buildings here at Ann J. Kellogg in the, not the school year that just wrapped up, the one before that. All the years are a blur. I am running for this position really for 3 kind of central tenets of my platform. And that's just really making sure that staff are able to take care of themselves, have the time that they need, the resources they need to make sure that they're at their best to care for our students. Increase classroom supports, which I've experienced myself and witnessed firsthand the necessity for increased supports in the classroom to support the students, to support the teachers. And really the central tenet of my platform is menstrual equity. So providing menstrual products for all of our students in all of our buildings free of charge. In my previous professional role, I was an organizer for Planned Parenthood and I covered this area. I've heard stories of youth in this district and other districts having to use wadded up paper towels and toilet papers because they don't have access to menstrual products. I find that absolutely unconscionable, and I know that it's no fault of anybody in this room, but I know we can do better, and I believe that we will do better. So I look forward to working with all of you on these priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear from Dr. Anthony Pinnock.
Hi, everyone. President Poole Gray, Superintendent Carter, and trustees. I know it's been a while since I've addressed you all in this forum, mainly because I know the weight and the feeling sometimes that comes over the room when I come in here. As the elected president of the BCEA, I am your direct connection to the instructional staff in the district. And if any of you can believe it, I'm entering my 6th year this fall as president of the BCEA. As I stand here today, I do not want to cause you any angst or concerns, but to share with you some exciting news, and also my hopes for the upcoming year in relation to 2 topics. First, many of you may know that in 2012, a lot happened to our district. At that time, only one of the current board members, who's not here today, was on the board and faced a barrage of concerns, really existential concerns for our district. The financial situation, severe declining enrollment, and attacks from the legislature on your staff's abilities to really speak freely with you on concerns and develop collaborative solutions. But that has changed quite rapidly. With years of record school aid budgets and the ability for your staff unions to bargain once again on teacher evaluations, payroll dues deduction, teacher discipline, and teacher placement, layoff, and recall procedures. And I'm happy to report that as of June 27th, the BCEA ratified the tentative agreement with the district to restore all of these back to our contract. We know that educating all of our affected staff will be difficult after years of having their voices silenced by those in Lansing, not those on this board or in this district. But together, we can build the trust and relationships that have been harmed, which have led to high turnover and educator shortages in our district. We know that when we work together, truly together, in a collaborative process to collectively bargain better working conditions for our staff, they stay and more want to come here. Second, with the understanding of the vital role that the Battle Creek School Board plays in upholding these values and ensuring fair and equitable treatment for all of our staff and students, over the last several months, a volunteer committee consisting of members of each of the associations in this district have volunteered their time to survey and interview each of the declared candidates for the November 2024 election for this Board of Education, and they've made their recommendation to our members. As such, it's my honor to inform the community and this board that the Battle Creek Education Association recommends Jamisha Nordman and Ryan Hoagland Jackson for the Battle Creek Public School Board of Education in the November election. Both of these candidates are fierce allies for education equity and justice and bring a variety of perspectives from diverse communities to further enrich the BCPS Board of Education. Jamisha, as she stated, is a former BCPS educator and brings a wide range of experiences from the perspective of a building secretary, a teacher, an administrator, and now a professor. Ryan is a former long-term substitute teacher for Battle Creek and has a history of understanding the needs of our most vulnerable students, and he was an aide in an autism program prior to working with Battle Creek students. Both of these candidates will be fantastic additions with fresh voices on the Board of Education, and with that, I cannot wait to look forward to what 24-25 has to bring to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pinnock. Okay, the chair will now entertain a motion for the consideration and the approval of the following consent agenda items.
President Poole Gray,
Trustee LaValle.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the following consent agenda items. A, trust fund. B, the minutes of the work session on June 10th, 2024. Closed session, June 10th, 2024. Special meeting, June 17th, 2024. June 24th, budget meeting 2024. Regular meeting on June 24th, 2024. And a closed session, June 24th on 2024. C, bills for the month of June. D, personnel changes and recognition of retirees. E, the finance report. F, the upbeat, exit, and engagement surveys of 024 of 025. G, STAR Renaissance Suites, STAR Math, STAR Reading, and Freckle Math. H, Read 180 and Math 180 renewal. I, corrective reading. J, renewal of second step curriculum. K, 24-25 radio replacements, walkie-talkies, phase 2. L, urban connections contract. M, 2024-2025 communications support. And N, Cognitia membership for accreditation.
Support.
It's been moved by trustee LaValle, supported by trustee Fulbright, that we approve the consent agenda items. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. Moving down to reports and recommendations. Sixth grade Adventure Day Camp and Outdoor Education Center, Luke Perry.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Got right into it, didn't I? I am here this evening to recommend excuse me, you guys have me nervous.
Don't be.
A long time, hasn't it? Sixth grade adventure day camp at the OEC. As you know, the OEC is the oldest operating camp owned by a public school in the country. With all the change that is occurring in the district right now with the creation of the sixth grade academy at EMJ, that in this changing times, bringing students together and giving them a taste of how things work will be great. We are recommending that that the board adopt this resolution for a cost of $62,000 for the coming school year.
Any questions?
I have a question. So, on here it's saying day camp, so was that self-explanatory where it's not overnight for a week
It's not
anymore?
the
It's just a
overnight camp. It's a day camp.
But our fifth graders continue overnight.
Got it.
And just so you know, STEM is not included in this because the OEC is already part of the STEM middle school program.
I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the day camp. I think the students will be really excited, along with the parents, about that. Any other discussions or comments? Okay, stay right there.
Oh, I know. Yes, Miss Fulbright, I apologize.
Math is figurable. Is that how you pronounce that?
Figure outable.
Oh my, that's a mouthful. Well, you go ahead.
As you know, we are firmly committed to elevating student achievement in math. The Math is Figure Outable program focuses on building a deep understanding of mathematical concepts through strategic, content-specific workshops and ongoing support. We have a lot of in-district support for this program, including our math department lead, Savannah Ware, but also 2 teachers within our adult education department, Mrs. Carol Poole and Mr. Barry Linscott, have already experienced the benefits of this training and have been strong advocates for ensuring all 6th to 12th grade math teachers and students similarly benefit. Carol has asked us to share her testimonial during this program. This is from Mrs. Poole. I have the privilege of being an instructor in Battle Creek Public Schools adult education. Mathematically, what an exciting place to be. This is my 2nd year participating as a journey leader in the Pam Harris Math is Figure Outable teacher training program, and I'm fortunate to witness the power of this approach firsthand. Research indicates that 80% of adult learners struggle to pass the math portion of the high school equivalency diploma. Seeing our students develop mathematical reasoning skills rather than relying on memorization is incredibly rewarding, and I attribute much of our success to Pam Harris and Math is Figure Outable. The most gratifying feedback comes from students who say, "Why didn't teachers teach math like this when I was in school?" We recommend enrolling 20 of our secondary and adult education math teachers in Math is Figure Outable Journey Plus training. The training will be integrated into our back-to-school professional development schedule and can be expanded through the Transformational Teacher Institute, utilizing the included access to online workshops and virtual learning community. And we thank you for your consideration.
Trustee LaValle?
Thank you, President Poole-Gray. When I was stuck on the elevator a few minutes ago, I got a personal recommendation on this obstacle that we were experiencing. But to hear the fine results from the parents being able to help their own children at home, I think that's an extra benefit that makes good sense. And why not make math fun? And to know that the program called Pam Harris is a provable program that looks like it could be the answer to lots of people maybe becoming math lovers in the near future.
Absolutely.
It's my hope that that could happen.
Any other questions, discussion? Thank you, Luke.
Thank you.
Moving right down to Valley View Elementary rooftop unit replacement, Josh Bowman.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We have recently experienced a severe mechanical failure that has left the cooling portion of the existing rooftop unit at Valley View in disrepair. Given the current age of the unit and the severity of that failure, it is recommended that we replace the entire unit with a new, similar sized unit in order to provide heating and cooling to the office portion of the building. With the existing unit and internal components being roughly 15 years old and well over half of their average lifespan, the best long-term solution points to complete replacement. Complete replacement would provide us with a unit that has increased efficiencies, lower operating costs, and greater longevity. Newly installed equipment would also carry a warranty of 5 years on the compressors and 3 years on internal coils. For these reasons, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve Hunter Prell in the amount of $29,411.92 to provide all necessary labor and materials to remove and replace the current rooftop heating and cooling unit at Valley View.
Any questions? Trustee LaValle?
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Has the repair started, because that's where our summer school is happening this summer? It did, as it ended last Friday. Did this problem?
Yeah, so to date, we have not ordered any equipment. So once we get approval, we will place orders. And as of the 15th of July, these were 2 weeks out.
Okay. But did it affect our summer school program at all with the unit going out?
This was just for the office, so we temporarily cooled those areas as we could with portable units until then.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Trustee Fulmer?
So, I definitely think we should replace it. That's not what I'm worried about. But I'm just curious, is there any way we could have, I guess, seen in the future as to, oh, this is getting ready to be past its life, we should look into, instead of all of a sudden, like, is there a preventative way we could have seen this before now? If we already knew it was over half old, half past its life expectancy.
Normally, compressors don't fail to this extent.
Okay.
Normally, there's oil in the compressor, there's refrigerant in the compressor, these two actually combined, and what happens is it pumps it out into the rest of the system, which makes the rest of the system unusable. So we can attempt to clean that out. Chances are it's not going to clean out completely, and they won't warranty any of that work. So the point of the complete replacement was to get everything in there brand new, start fresh. To answer your question, yes, there's vibration technologies that you can use, instruments to detect internal vibrations. We don't have any of those tools yet, but we are looking into gaining that knowledge and getting those tools.
So this new one is going to be a 20 to 25 year life expectancy?
Yes, most HVAC equipment rooftop units are in that 20 to 25 year range depending on maintenance, yes.
Okay, so then maybe in the future, in 20 years from now, we could look into, oh, this is getting ready to be, so then we won't have to.
Yeah, correct. It's actually unusual. It's unusual to have this kind of failure in a unit that's only 15 years old, certainly.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question. You kind of touched on it with the lifespan, but I see we have the lowest bid, so comparably, are the other ones having a similar lifespan, so we're comfortable that the quality for this lowest cost one will give us?
Yes, so they all spec similar units.
Okay.
Comparable units to the manufacturer that we're putting in everywhere else.
Any other questions? Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on down to new business. The chair will now entertain a motion for the purchase of the math is figurable. You guys know what I mean. Eligible. I gotta practice that.
Madam President,
Yes, Trustee Perry.
I move that we approve math is figure outable in the amount of $13,020 coming from the funding source of ESSER.
Support.
It's been moved by Dr. Perry, supported by Dr. Johnson and Trustee Fulbright. Trustee LaValle, that we approve the purchase of the math project. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. Okay, we will now entertain a motion for Valley View Elementary rooftop unit replacement.
Madam President,
Yes, Dr. Johnson.
I move to approve Valley View Elementary rooftop unit replacement in the amount of up to $29,411.92.
Support.
It's been moved by Dr. Johnson, supported by Trustee LaValle, that we approve the purchase of the rooftop for Valley View Elementary School. Any discussion? Yes, Trustee.
President Poole-Gray, I really like what Trustee Fulbright was getting at earlier with the presentation, that I think we're due for that update of facilities plans, that every so often we get an assessment of what needs to be done, maybe 3 years out, 4 years out, 5 years out. And I think that is a very practical, reasonable request, that we kind of be ahead of the game so we don't get the surprises that it just completely gives out. And I could be misspeaking, but I just think we're gonna hopefully have that trust in the district management to make sure that when repairs are needed, we are on a proactive basis to kind of look for things that might just give out. And I know we're protected by warranties, which is good, but if I would just add to this very important equipment replacement, I would like to see it last forever, but we have a tendency in the district to think it will last forever. It just doesn't. And so to be on that proactive stance, I think that is wise to have in the future.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. Moving down to discussion, strategic plan refresh, Superintendent Dr. Carter.
Thank you, everybody. So, the board did engage in an opportunity for us to move forward with our strategic plan refresh. And so I am pleased that right on time, Dr. Campbell is joining us to begin the process tonight. So for those of you who are in the audience, I hope that you will stay with us, because we're going to be launching a new strategic planning process which will engage many different stakeholders, specifically our union partners, as well as staff, teachers, and others from all aspects. And so if you don't mind, we'll take a 5-minute recess and then return so that Dr. Campbell can get set up, and we'll move into our strategic planning refresh. All right.
Meeting will now come back to order, please. Can't wait to do that.
All yours.
All right.
Yep.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Carter, and guests. I'm excited to talk to you about our strategic planning process. In this presentation, before I actually go to the content, you're going to see a little information about me and the scholar first. I'll talk to you a little bit about the research that sort of undergirds the process, and then I'll walk you through our process and I'll show you products. What I will say is some big ideas. This is our third year really doing this work extensively across multiple states. And what people say who go through the process is that when you go to schools, people own the strategic plan. It's not something that was done to, it'll be done with. And we pride ourselves on you having large numbers of people who actually participate. And I've got at least 3 or 4 samples from this last year that I'll be able to showcase for you. And at the end, I'll open it up for questions. So a little bit about what we hope to accomplish, which I've already said, and I often forget that I've got my talking points there too. Research, talk a little bit about how we will be ensuring that this should cause continuous improvement. If your strategic plan doesn't cause schools to actually be better at what they do, I don't think they're good strategic plans. And my curiosity as a former superintendent and national sort of consultant around strategic planning is born out of seeing so many of them that were like the Dead Sea Scrolls that no one knew where they came from or what they were all about. And the ones that we utilize, they really tie right into what's happening at the school because we'll have so many of your leaders involved. And then I'll talk to you a little bit about how we go about engaging your stakeholders, your community. Some of the guiding principles, it should cause improvement to happen. It's done with you, not to the district or for the district, because those are too dangerous. So a lot of processes, sometimes strategic plans can be done over a couple months. Ours usually take about 6 months over the course of the year when we're doing it. We go slow to go fast, because once it's actually done, then schools can actually just dive right in. It's anchored in scholar voice. I used that term scholar. It was a term I brought to Federal Way where I was superintendent, but it's student voice. So we start with one of our big things that we do. We listen to students of all the schools, and they shape the vision that then we bring back to you as a board, for example, where you will articulate the mission. You'll look at your current mission, and we'll recalibrate it to what we heard from our students. My quote is, how long are we going to continue to build and rebuild schools without once talking to the people they're intended to serve, which is our students? We want this to be driven by student-centered goals as well as being driven by equity-informed strategies, meaning we want our programs, our strategies to touch all the students to give them what they need. Not one uniform approach, but to give students what they need. And the student-centered goals mean that sometimes strategic plans can have strategies confused with goals, and by that I mean this. We actually you'll have 4 goals, and I'll show you these goal areas. You will name them, the names that make the most sense to you, but these particular goals are all around student outcomes. Then we bifurcate that out to district sort of foundations. Those are the things that you're leading at the district level to support those student-centered goals so that will actually drive what's happening in your schools. We utilize research and evidence-based practices to improve outcomes. And we also engage in a process with your central office where they work backwards from the vision to figure out what they're going to have to do so that whether I am the chief finance officer, the person in charge of human resources, every single person should see a through line to that vision. We want that alignment to happen as a result of the process. A little bit about the scholar first. My name again is Tammy Campbell, and we pride ourselves on capacity building. I started my day out, for example, doing some school board work with the Grand Rapids Public Schools. I've been working with them for a year as I helped them to sort of reshape their policies so they're student-centered, so they can actually measure out those outcomes. And a little bit about how they're going to continue to work together. I was listening to you out in the hallways. I can always tell about a board and how you are connecting with each other. And I said to your superintendent, you can tell there's some health and team in that group. Just sitting out in the hall, you can hear it. Because I'm in districts all over the country. And so there's something about the connectivity and the trust that you seem to have for each other that was conveyed out in the hallway to me. Just my initial.
That's true.
I picked it up. The fact that you can laugh together the way you do, but yet you're very much focused on your business. I was impressed with just hearing that. So strategic planning is one sort of stream of work that we do. Principal supervisor coaching. So I do some coaching for AASA and the Wallace Foundation, where we coach specifically on modules for principal supervisors. School board professional learning, you heard me talk a little bit about that, and central office work as well. That central office leadership coaching I did when I spent a year with the University of Washington CEL and did some coaching in some of the larger districts across the country. I tell you all of that to say that I bring all of those different filters to your benefit and helping you to get the very best strategic plan. A little bit about me. I've been a classroom teacher, a math staff developer, a principal, an area superintendent where I supervised about 17 elementary schools in Spokane Public Schools, which is one of the largest school districts in the state of Washington. I was a national consultant for CEL. I was assistant superintendent of teaching and learning at Renton, and then superintendent in Federal Way Public Schools. And what I'm most proud about in that Federal Way work that we did, we were known for having some of the highest college going rates in all of that Seattle area. And we're the most diverse district in the state of Washington. And the 5th most diverse district in the nation. We had 117 languages, and every one of our students, before they graduated, 80% of them had taken at least one advanced placement course. We eliminated what we call fluff. We didn't pad the books for those grad rates. We did that the old-fashioned way, and our strategic plan drove all of that work. And so that gave me the impetus, again, to be thinking about strategic plan design. And our board was Large School Board of the Year the year before I left. I currently am doing work, you heard some of it, but I'm also doing some work for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I am the facilitator for the state of Washington's post-secondary success work. So when I do some work to support you in your grad profile, I will be able to share some of that data that's coming out of it. That particular roundtable is comprised of college presidents, superintendents. I push the students, so we've got scholars there, principals, and we meet quarterly to spread the news and the word to all these school districts about what we're noticing across the nation that's causing post-secondary success. And Kent ISD, for example, I'm going to be doing some superintendent networking with them around instructional rounds through all the schools in that particular area. I've done some work for the State Department of Education in Washington with their cabinet, as well as the Oregon Department of Education. So I have a lot of different groups that I'm working with. Again, all of those things you will bring to bear as I support you. And although we have some folks who consult, the primary bulk of this work I will be doing myself on behalf of the Scholar First. And then I have just some quotes from folks. I need to update these, but you can see this is like the state superintendent for the state of Washington, different deputy superintendents as well as superintendents, not necessarily wanting to brag, but to let you know that we have folks who feel like this has been exceptional work. I have to tell you, one of the pride points was I got a call from a superintendent in a district of about 4,000. We just did their strategic plan. And he said, you know what, I've got to tell you, our principals are saying for the first time they're all on the same page with these similar goals. And because we had gone through the process in the way that we did, they were getting less pushback as a result of that process. So just talk to someone who we just did their plan a little bit ago. And here are some of the districts. Beaverton is a district, I think, of about 55,000 in Oregon. And then you have Othello, which is a district of about 3,000. So it's a whole range of districts that we've done. And these are the ones we've done in the last 2 years. We typically try not to do more than 5 per year because of the amount of time, intensity that it takes to actually get it done well. And because I've actually had to work and lead a strategic plan as a superintendent, I really want to be sure that it's going to position you and your team to do the best thing by those babies in those classrooms. So let me share with you some research that shapes why you see the design that we have. I'm finding in some places we are asking schools to do too much, and we have too many goals. That's why the goal areas that in this new design will have 4 goal areas. The schools will have 2. And I'll explain how with those 2, they will then be able to really dial in. We will actually have a day probably 3/4 of the way in, where you'll have in a room teachers and principals out in the rank and file folks out in the building coming together to generate ideas of practices based on research. That right there is one of the best things that happen. They will name, and I'll show you samples, what, that's our goal area, what are the 10 practices we will commit to being really good at over the next 6 years. So that's why you want to really get narrow. So this is what Battelle says, that buildings should have no more than 3 or fewer goals, and the district should have no more than 5 or fewer. So you can actually go deep and do the work well. There are other indicators on there, but that's the one I really want to focus on. The other thing, the reason why I like to work with the cabinet all the way out to classroom teachers through the different touches and processes and students and their families is you want to get coherency. Coherency is the key to making the engine go. And when things are coherent, they're consistent across schools. They're connected across initiatives and strategies. People see how these things are together, are working together, and they don't say, it's just one more thing, or this is just piled on top of. So this process should feel like I call it, you're linking the known to the new. So strategies are interconnected, and the work that we do should be connected. And so we really work for the different committees to see the connection. And why strategic plan? You want to move from this misalignment. And I'm not saying this is where your district is, but even if you have a little bit of folks feeling like there's too much going on, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, well, each school is working as a silo, or there's a lack of focus, this process should strengthen your standing. Where what we hear, and these are actual quotes from the districts, everyone feels like they would express that they're moving in the same direction. We have fewer goals, and we're clear about what we are going to count as success over the next 6 years. And my recommendation is a 6-year kind of window for your plan. And they're better able to collaborate across schools and sort of come together to talk about what's working and what's not. And it's clear students will be at the center of your plan. Here are the milestones and deliverables. Everything that's bolded is what you will actually get as a result of the process. We do something called visioning the student experience. It's one of the first things we do, where we ask building leaders to talk to about 30 students. We ask them to ask students 4 basic questions. These questions fall in the category of belonging, social and emotional, and academics. We get all that feedback back, and then we have a smaller group that then writes his vision of the student experience. We then take the draft. We'll have a core planning team, which is parents, students, staff, administrators that we'll meet with remotely 4 or 5 times. They'll give us feedback on that. And then we take it back if it needs to be tweaked. And we also take that vision to you, board members, because you will see the mission statement. We'll also generate core values as a result of that vision. And then working with the central office, they'll do a theory of action. That to me is the heart and soul of the plan, because what that basically is the central office saying, what do we think will cause improvement to happen? But instead of working from a problem, we're working from our preferred vision that of the student experience. We will do listening and learning, where we will have 2 staff members from our team who will be here on the ground. They'll be here from early in the morning till late in the afternoon, where they will meet with families, students, staff, all different levels of staff, where we ask questions of them, and we do that in forums and panels. And then we know we haven't talked to everybody, even though we've done it in person. So the very next day, a survey goes out where we ask those exact same questions of that group. That information can be really important to helping to inform your foundations. You're probably wondering what I mean by foundations. Those are the district initiatives that will be supporting those 4 goal areas. And I'll show you samples so it'll be clear to you what I mean by that. We also theme that information, and we'll share the themes with you as a board. What came up? What were those high-level things that we heard? Then we frame and name your goal areas. So the goal areas are 4, and they are, when I think about them, there's one that's around this sort of social emotional health, belonging, and the other 3 are academic ones. But the names, you name them. Different districts have different sort of nomenclature. The lexicon of their language is different, so we let you personalize that. It's just that they're the categories. So for example, one category is early learning. There is a goal area around that, and those practices that you're going to focus on for that are pretty tailored to that. Another one is this belonging, social, emotional, which gets to attendance, discipline, those kinds of things. Then there's one on us, being college or future ready. And so you'll name that. And then the other is around mastering standards at every grade level. So you can see how they work together. And depending on the level that you are at, so if I'm a high school, I'm going to have goal 1, which is the belonging one, and goal 4, which is that post-secondary one. If I'm a middle school, I'm going to have goal 1, and I'm going to have goal 3. Everybody has goal 1, the belonging, whole child kind of thing. And ultimately, as a board, I would imagine you set up a schedule where you're then starting to get report outs about how this is all playing out. Then we draft outcomes. So we'll actually have outcomes, and then we'll create performance targets. And I like those targets to be written out of 10 as opposed to percentages. So by 2026, 9 out of 10 of your scholars will be whatever. I think when you write goals that way, it sounds more personal. I know you've been doing some work on graduate profile. I have had some districts who've already done it. And then I meet with another group to show them the vision, because that vision would have adjusted. I ask them, do you want to do any tweaks to your graduate profile? And we also talked about probably looking at how we might actually take your profile and start to personalize it into some kind of like model lessons. And so we'll meet with your team to determine what that looks like. And then there are the foundations. These are the things that the board and the superintendent team will frame up some of these, share them with you, and those are the kinds of things that actually support those goal areas. Let me give you an example. I was in a district where we did listening and learning, and they heard unanimously from their community communication wasn't very strong. One of their foundations was around what we would call communication as a big goal, and then they had different smaller initiatives that were going to happen at the district level and at the school level to strengthen communication. And lastly, what truly gets sort of folks excited is coming up with your new promise statement or tagline. So you have a core planning team. They'll generate 4 to 5 drafts. If you have a student group, some superintendents have actually taken that student group and they'll have one suggestion along with this committee. You send it out to your staff, to families, as well as to the community and students, and they vote. And the one with the most votes wins. Again, you're starting to socialize every aspect of your strategic plan. Then at that point it's complete, and then I meet with your team to talk a little bit about what does that next step look like for the actual school improvement process. I've talked you through these phases, so let me just now show you some samples of what we're talking about.
Could you go back to that last slide there?
Yeah.
It's phase 1. Not that one, but the one that says phase 1, phase 2, phase 3.
Yes.
I didn't get a chance to read all that.
Okay, so phase 1 is where we're connecting and creating the conditions, and this is phase 1 that we're in right now. You're the first group that we interact with. And so this is sort of getting everything ripened, ready for the strategic planning process. It's me talking to Dr. Carter, making sure they're starting to identify committees. It's that kind of thing. Phase 2 is where the visioning work happens. It's also where we will be doing work around the theory of action and the core values. Phase 3 is where those groups meet after school to name the practices. And then phase 4 is really getting ready it's the promise statement, the branding, but then getting ready for the school improvement sort of process. Thank you for asking that question. So this is in phase 1. We're giving you this update. So that's an important component. And I talked to you about the vision of the student experience. This is where building leaders will be talking to students, asking them questions. And it's critical that we do this because we want the strategic plan to make that vision a reality. So here's some examples. This is what it looks like. This is Beaverton, Oregon, and this is what they have said is their vision. Some of these are a little bit lengthier than others. This is juxtaposed to the vision statements that may say every student 21st century ready for their futures. That's one way. These are I statements from the student perspective. And a lot of these schools put these statements up, districts in their schools. Here's another one. I belong, I believe, I learn. And then underneath it is just a description of what you want that student to say. Your strategic plan should cause this to happen. What we're finding, families will say this is much more they can feel the students in the visioning process. and they can feel their students' expression of their need in it. I'm a learner, I'm seen and loved, I matter, and so does everyone else. Again, you can hear the I statements from the students. And here's another one. Again, you will have your own. I don't come in with sort of a, a set thing in mind. Each district is doing this in different ways. Core values, we then take the vision statement back to the core planning team and we say, what are the core values of a district that could accomplish that vision? And when we ask that question, they give us key words, and here's some of the core values that we've seen other districts around the country come up with. Academic excellence, belonging and dignity, community connection, and you'll see they're different. Different districts will do this differently. Academic excellence, belonging, community, belonging and inclusion, academics and excellence. Academics comes up, especially post-COVID, because a lot of the districts are noticing there has been a slide. So they're really pressing on the academic part. Community and integrity, community excellence. So again, I show you those to show you we don't have a cookie cutter in terms of what they are, but we know you need to have them. Why does that matter? Because you're going to want that to be on your job postings on your website. When people look to come to your district, they're going to be looking. Some folks will actually look at that to see who you are and what you're about. Board members, I'll come to you and you'll give us words and phrases for the mission statement to sort of bring your mission statement right alongside that new vision statement that we're going to be creating. And a mission statement describes how the district, why the district exists. That's basically what it does. Here's some examples from other boards. So I'll have you to scan. You can see some of the key words. Some boards will do it in a shorter, compact statement, and my advice is that's what you want to do. But, I let folks land where they land. As you can only facilitate so much. But I would say brevity is going to be your friend because people will actually remember it. Here's another one. And after being with these different teams, you can tell what they value and prioritize. And then I say a vision without a strategy is just a hallucination. So you've got to actually then take that vision statement and work backwards, and that's where the theory of action comes into play. I've talked to you a lot about it, and this will be done internally with Dr. Carter and her team, that central office group with some administrators and other key leaders. We basically take the vision of the student experience and we say, what will educators have to do? And then based on that, what will school leaders have to do? And then what will the central office have to do? The reason this is important to do it this way is no one can be sort of like, it's your work. This will be everybody's work. This is about mutual accountability. It also forces us to have some empathy about what we're asking different levels to do. If we can't support it, then it's probably too much. It just is a healthy process to sort of put yourself in the different roles. Here's some examples of what a theory of action looks like. And so you can see on the right is this sort of vision of the student experience. And I tell them, pick one thing that you think is the highest leverage thing that the educator should be doing. And then they do that here. And then if the educator is to do that, what will the school leaders do? And if the school leader does that, what will the central office have to do? And that central office column is critical. I've seen too many strategic plans where people think it's only teaching and learning's responsibility to do a lot of this. And we want everybody to see how their role in accomplishing this. Here's another one. And that district leader one is often bigger for a reason because there's just more complexity. And you can see how this all plays out. This is Akron. They had already done their strategic plan and they didn't have a theory of action, so I came to help them to do this so they could prioritize because you had all those things in the strategic plan. So I said, whatever's here, make those your priorities. So that's why this was critical. It's important to do it first. So this will be done with the central office. The other reason this is important, whatever practices we identify in that strategic plan should support these actions that are here. And by taking the time to do this, we won't just pull 1,000 different things. It should align. Listening and learning. So you heard me talk about that. Who do we do it with? Students, staff, and families. And I want to show you some of the themes. These are some of the things that came up from students. What words come to mind when you think about your school experience? Students have mixed emotions about their school experience. That's the theme. And then here are the quotes. When we get done with listening and learning, you'll get a report like this, and we actually take the words right from the students and right from staff. Support from teachers was attributed to student success across all grade levels. So that was the theme. So how do you know that was a theme? Then they give examples. So this is like an exemplar of a district that did that. And we do this for the students, the staff, and the families. We do it for all stakeholder groups. I just wanted you to see what that looks like.
For students, are you going as low as like we have pre-K?
Oh,
That level, or are you having a certain
third
level?
grade is typically where you go.
Okay.
Third grade. So the focus groups will be third grade on up, and then you send out the surveys. That's typically what we see. So I call this the heart of the plan. So here are the goal areas. There are 4 goals. You heard me say this. I'll do a little pop quiz at the end to see if you were tracking some of this. And goal 1, whole child, is the generic name. This district is calling it a culture of safety and belonging. That's what they decided to land on. Goal 2 is early learning. Some districts have used terms like strong foundations. Start strong. It's left up to your team to name it. Just the process of naming things gives people greater ownership over the process. Goal 3, grade level competency. This district is calling it mastery of standards. And goal area 4, college and career, post-diploma ready, future ready. Those are just a couple of names. Where does this come from? Well, there's some research that's come out of Harvard that says when you want to measure student success, you should be looking at the social emotional aspect of the child, as well as belonging and identity, as well as academics. So, and the blue are determined by the grade level, so that we know that what high school will be working on, some things might be the same, but not everything should be the same as your middle and your high, which is why you get those leaders from those buildings to be at the table to help us identify the practices. And you heard me talk about how this will play out, and I'll come back to foundations in a minute. So let's look at some goal areas. So this is Evergreen Public Schools. They actually had someone starting out to help them with their strategic plan. They asked me to come to help because they didn't have outcomes. And without the outcomes, how would you know you've actually achieved your goal? So you can see a culture of safety and belonging, foundations for success, growth and mastery of grade level standards, and post-diploma ready. That's what they named it. That you also have the districts to identify the metrics that they're going to use, and there are the outcomes by which they're going to be determining whether or not they were successful. I know this is small writing, but over here I think it looks good. Okay, excellent. This is another district. Again, you can see they're using different names for these categories, but all of them will have outcomes. And I press them to use terms like increase or decrease. What direction are you wanting to go? Because not all outcomes should say increase. There are some things you actually want to decrease the number of those things. And then you can see on this one, you see the performance targets. So they actually will look at their current data and they'll decide by the year 2030, here is the performance target that'll tell us whether or not we were successful. Again, different districts doing it in different ways. Here's another district: safety and belonging, early excellence, mastery of standards, future ready, outcomes, performance targets. You'll have a similar format, but your content will be different. Okay? Lots of samples. Graduate profile. Once that vision of the student experience is done, it'll be critical for you to do your graduate profile. I actually come and facilitate that. And what I do when I facilitate that process, I will share with you wage data from across Michigan, wage data across the country, because often our communities that are framing this up we're thinking beyond just going to college. What does it take to actually earn a living wage? And half of the group, the committee, should be students, like your seniors and juniors who are coming to the table to help us think about this. And this graduate profile should be used to think about units of study at elementary, middle, and high. It should be used for lesson design, and it should be something that you would be sharing with your chamber, your business community, so folks understand what it is that we're wanting from our graduates. If you don't have a framework already, Our framework is, again, a student-friendly language. I'm skilled, I'm future-focused, I'm career-ready, I'm a difference maker. And then underneath it are 3 or 4 actual competencies. And you can see this is the below in the bulleted areas are the competencies that will drive sort of the units and the focus that teachers would actually have to implement it. Here's another one. Every time we do this information too with the students, you know what they all say? Every incoming set of freshmen should hear this data about the wages in the job market. They all walk away with this idea that that data that committee hears, that everybody should hear it. And families are also a part of this group. We also will have board members representation at that particular juncture. I've got skills, I'm a difference maker, I'm career ready, I'm future focused, and you can see some of the competencies. And that is what the community, you will sort of determine that. I don't tell folks to try to look at what someone else did. You kind of think about that yourself. Also what you know about what the local markets, the local industry are asking of. And that's one of the things that I'll share. I'll share international data with you. What do we know that's happening on the global stage? Because nowadays students are not just in the state, they may leave the state. So I think that's an important piece of information to have. And then there's the district foundations, which I talked to you about. So in Buren, they had these 4 areas of foundations. So remember, so you've got the 4 goal areas that I shared. Well, those are really driving school improvement. To some degree, your teaching and learning department. But what am I going to do if I'm in HR to support the strategic plan? These foundations will actually drive some of that. Engaging and effective teaching and learning systems. Authentic engagement with students, families, and community. Usually that one is always in there. Something around family engagement has to be called out. Facilities and programs for world-class learning, that's there. Some districts are working on a bond or they're thinking about it, so you'll often see that. And effective systems and structures for student success, that's what this district decided. Here's another district. You can see teaching and learning, family engagement, facilities and programs, and recruitment and retention of high-quality workforce. Here's another one. School environment. This is a lot around safety. There were some issues happening around safety in a lot of the schools. And remember that district I told you had the communications piece? This is Quincy. So communications, they knew they had their work to do on that front. Thank you for hanging in there. I know I'm giving you a lot of information, but I want you to have the clearest picture about what this is going to be. So then we get to the place where we're going to help you come up with your promise statement. Probably one of the most fun things that the committee's like. I have them, this is the group that meets remotely. They go into their own little breakout room and they come up with what they see as the most powerful, compelling statement that will summarize this process we've gone through over the last few months. We get 4 or 5 of them and we send it out in a survey and it's voted on. So here's the one, for example, we had in my district where I was superintendent. Each scholar, a voice, a dream, a bright future. We're known across the state for student voice. All of our principals have student advisories. I had one, and we lived out that promise statement. Quincy, successful students today, bright futures tomorrow. Beaverton, our promise, belong, believe, achieve. Believe it or not, sometimes boards will push back and say, well, why would we say it's a promise? What if we don't keep it? And I really, and I'm like, well, you've got to make it you've got to really go all in. We can't sort of hedge our bets. We want that to be our intention. Belonging for each, success for all. Belong, believe, achieve. Belong, you can see, is a theme. It'll be interesting to see what your group comes up with. We belong, we believe, we learn. Shared that one already. Believe, achieve, belong, empowering dreams for all. And I've shared that. This is what it looks like when it's actually branded. Ready to learn, ready to grow, ready to rise together. That's a little bit of a different take on it. So now, as we wrap this up, I want to show you some completed strategic plans. So the way it's designed, you get 2 things. You'll get a nice glossy strategic plan that'll be in your offices at schools and at the superintendent's office, at your district office that you can hand out. And in fact, when I was in Wyoming, Michigan, what Craig did was he actually made a little small mini one that he could just hand out when he went places. And this is what that would look like. So you'd have your cover, And we press you to make it so student-centered that folks can feel the urgency that you have about their children just from looking at the pictures. Table of contents, a letter from the superintendent. And I believe Gustavo is maybe going to be AASA president this year. So yeah, he's incredible. We were superintendents together. He's doing a really good job there. Your promise, the vision, the mission, your values, the goal areas, and the foundations. The foundations broken out differently, and this is one of the things that I asked from the very beginning. I asked the district to keep track of every single person who was a part of your process, so we can count and have this for your purposes. And you can see in that district they had 7,800 people who touched some part of the strategic plan. In a district your size, we want to have that number about 2,000, as opposed to usually what happens is 30 or 40 or 50. So you want this to be a high number. And then that's the back side of it. Here's another one. Same format, but different. Their own color schemes. You can see collective voices. They had over 1,800. This is a district of about 4,000. Their foundations, their vision, their core values, their profile of a graduate, their goal areas, and then the back side of the plan. This is another one. Collective voices. You get the idea how this sort of looks, okay? I'm not going to belabor that, but I want to show you this last part. Remember I said to you about 3/4 of the way in, your goals will be determined. And then we will take those 4 goal areas and we'll have teachers, building leaders, instructional leaders from all, and people at the central office come together, and they will become an expert in one of the goal areas. And they will generate practices that will help you to achieve your strategic plan. And this is what's different about our document or our process. So this is for goal area 1, that first outcome. Here are the practices that the schools with all these voices have said we want to become proficient at. And then if that's what we're going to do, what will the school leader do and what will the district do? And they pick a few of these to tackle every year, but they're not having to start over or recreate the wheel, and it's all based on research. And every goal area will have a document like this. This document is your second version of your strategic plan, and it's internal. And it's for those school leaders. You get a new principal, they don't have to try to figure out what the practices are. You have codified them now, and they've been vetted by all of these leaders all across the district. On average, the day that we do this, we have anywhere between 80 to 90 staff, teachers, principals, all together coming up with what this is. So that's a look at what you're going to see in terms of the strategic planning process. I'm going to stop here. I know I've got a few more samples, but I want to open this up for questions now.
That slide you were just showing.
Yes.
How have you seen boards effectively monitor, support? Because I don't see, there's no spot for boards. So how does the board play into those?
So that's a great point. Let me go to the end. Right. Oh, I did. It wasn't as much as I thought. You asked a great question. I actually have a slide to answer that. So there's key things for the board. I don't know why I thought I had a bunch of them at the back side of that. The first role is understanding the process. That's key. You have to know it, which is why we start with you. You're going to see the mission statement. That's another role that you'll play. Once it's sort of shared out there, I don't know how what your board activities like, but our board was a part of Rotary, the Chamber. They all had copies of the strategic plan to share that with the community. And probably the most important thing is calendaring, monitoring of the goal areas. That's the most important thing, because what I often, when I work with boards, I remind them, if you are then choosing the strategies, you can't hold folks accountable because you've both chosen what they're doing. So you're in a monitoring role. Calendar that monitoring schedule and getting feedback on growth related to it. And then knowing that we got to stay the course. Decision making, resource allocation, what's there? That to me is another role that the board plays. So thank you for that question. Other questions?
In one of your slides, it said the board of directors.
Oh,
Is that us, or is that a different definition of who the directors are?
It's you. So often in Washington State, that's the phrase we use, the board of directors. And I've been in Michigan enough to realize that you're talking about board of trustees. So thank you.
Okay.
It's you. Thank you for asking
Thank you.
that. it's good to know when you're supposed to be doing something that I'm using the name, that makes sense.
So I love this, and I'm curious about, when did the district go through it felt like a rebranding in the last few years with KKF and, so
It's
like,
been 7 years.
oh, okay.
That's the right amount of time. It's perfect
Right
time.
on time
You
for
are.
a new
Perfect.
refresh. And it's interesting that we were just talking to Fenton earlier about the rebranding and said we were gonna push that down. And we should, because it should come out of this. Because they were
process.
gonna start that process this fall. And it just seems like this is all
Yep.
perfect timing to say, okay, you come in at the end of this.
That's right.
Around what comes out of this process.
Is that someone on staff?
Fenton is our communications partner.
Oh, okay. So they do all of your communications and documents and things like that, okay? Yeah. That'll be important, especially your promise statement will drive to some degree, like what that phrase is, could describe some of it. And seeing some of these samples might not be a bad idea too.
And the piece that I love about this, in full transparency, is that what is going to be done apart from it was more like a corporation doing
Oh,
it,
yeah.
rather than this being a grassroots effort to rebrand. So I'm really excited about the fact that this will be bottom up rather than being done, here, let me bring you a new brand, right?
Right. It'll come from lots of voices, lots of
Well, I
voices.
love that it starts with centering the student experience, right? So that grounding is really important.
Yep.
I had a question, this might be more into the weeds when you get into other phases, but I heard you were saying like you're getting student input, community input. How will we be aware of that so we're able to champion it and encourage participation from folks for that?
Yeah, so typically what you'll see is board representation on the core planning team. When I'm doing, when the listening and learning happens, sometimes the board is out and about. I tell you to be careful when you're in some of these spaces. It sounds like you've got a healthier place, but in some places, people won't say certain things, right? We will be giving you periodic updates. I will be doing that with you. Some of those will be remote to say, here's what, for example, here's what came out of the themes. And you'll get to hear that. And you've got an incredible superintendent. I have talked to her. I get to work with a lot of soups. This is an incredible leader. I can't imagine she wouldn't be keeping you apprised of what's happening all throughout the process. And then when it starts to be framed, we'll be coming back to you as a board to say, here are some of the pieces. You shouldn't feel surprised, though, about how it's going because of the different ways and avenues with which you'll be able to be present.
So when does this start? Today?
Today, we start with you. We start with you. Yep, and I'll be back in a couple weeks to give this same overview to your administrators.
Can I ask another question? So what's the length of the development process, and what's the length typically of the actual strategic plan?
That's a great question.
3 years?
I don't have the timeline in front of me, but we do have a timeline. I should have put that on here, but I think it's probably around February, March-ish. It'll be close to being done.
Okay.
And then once we do that in 2025, then you add 6 years to it, so 2031 would be my recommendation. But here's the truth of the matter is, when you get to 2031, my guess is some of those practices you may not have met. That's just the truth. So then what you do, you look at those ones that you're gonna stay the course on, and then you're gonna refresh. Those goals should not be moving that much. We still have the same goal areas we had 9 years ago. What we tweaked are the practices, the things that are in the box. Your staff are gonna thank you for that. It's gonna sit still. They're not gonna be worried about a new initiative, those kinds of things. And I think that is what, again, creates greater degrees of improvement.
I think it's important too not to have so many layers that you can't breathe.
Yep.
And I'm just being very blunt about that. And the simpler, the better.
Yep.
Less is more.
Yep.
In this whole experience.
Yep, absolutely. And that's what we try to do, is to simplify it. And the other way we simplify it is by having people involved in it. So the fact that they were involved in it means they're fluent on it, which then makes it feel simpler than if it was done to
I think that's a connection too of ownership.
Yeah, it is.
And it really says they have buy-in to it because they got to participate in the formation of the strategic plan.
Yeah, you'll hear me use this term co-construction a lot, because I believe we don't do enough of that for healthy implementation, which is what you've described.
Any other questions for Dr. Kent now?
Well, I'm excited and really looking forward to the partnership. And so looking forward, there are several different groups that Dr. Campbell has already sent us. These are the groups. And so over the next couple of weeks, we'll just start to put in place those groups. We're going to leverage Mariama for the community partners and all of the individuals that will be involved. And we will definitely share those different teams with the board so you know who's in what spots and how this is progressing.
One thing I should just add to the graduate profile committee, typically will have board representation there as well. So that one for sure, I know I've seen board sitting on that.
And so I think, if I'm not mistaken, I just want to offer an opportunity for Dr. Harvey to weigh in. Akron actually is one of our partners who we've been working with for, so it's really great to see that they have career academies. They're implementing career academies alongside us. So we've done a lot of work, and they're part of LLN, which is the learning network that we're part of. So we have some connection there. We do have a graduate profile, but just in our conversations with Akron and others, we want to refresh it, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
And so, again, this is aligned work, and timing is impeccable, because just this summer we took all of our secondary administrators to look at our current graduate profile and talk about recommendations for what we wanted to see. So we came up with some big goal areas with competencies, much like the design that you've shared. So they are ready for this work and well positioned to participate on the committees to take it forward.
Awesome. So what I would imagine we do once we get the vision of the student experience, and we bring that to that group to say, okay, now let's look at it. Is there anything that's out of alignment? And then to look at those core competencies after I share with you some of that international and national and even Michigan data around what we know about what it really means to be post-secondary successful.
I'd be really interested in then sharing that with our Career Academy Council.
Yes.
Because those are the business folks from this area saying, look at what we've improved upon in terms of our graduate. And making the announcement here, Ford Blue Oval just became a partner with us and is sitting on the council. That just happened last week. And so it'd be interesting for them to hear about what we're doing to develop a workforce.
Are you planning on maybe having some of those folks on the grad profile group?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Very nice to meet all of you.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any public comment? Thank you. Superintendent's comments.
I normally have them written and I wasn't ready. Can you slow down? No. Okay. All right. I'd like to start by just sending a big thank you to all the staff members who helped create an amazing summer learning process. We had an amazing summer program, Bearcat Blast, Kindergarten Success. Those staff members who stayed on over the summer, we are deeply in gratitude for all of the work that they did. I also want to say a special thank you to those who came out and engaged in our community events. Our partners, we had several events this past week. There was the summer learning event, and it was really great to see some of our local police officers out there doing hustles and just having a blast. And then the community carnival was an amazing opportunity. So I am deeply appreciative of all of the community partners who continue to create opportunities for our families. Of course, I know some of us don't want to hear this, but I'm going to say it anyway. First day of school is 23 days away. On Wednesday, August 21st is the first day of school. We'll be welcoming back all of our students. The first few days are as important for kids to build relationships. So I really want to strongly suggest that our students are there on the first day of school. Those are the most important days around understanding roles, responsibilities, and the way things work. It's also very important for our kindergartners to be there on that full day. And please make sure that they're fully enrolled by September 1st to be eligible for the maximum available scholarship of the Bearcat Advantage. So enjoy the rest of your summer, everybody, and thank you to this board for the continued support.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. Board member comments? Yes, trustee Fulbright.
So first, I just want to thank all of the employees and board members who showed up to the Pride Parade for Battle Creek last week. We had, I don't remember how many people, but a lot of people showed up. It was great representation for Battle Creek Public Schools in our community, so I really appreciate that. It was great, so thank you so much for that. Also, I want to suggest that we sign up to be a member of the CUBE, which is the Council of Urban Board of Education, for two reasons. One, we can go to their annual conferences every year, which is another learning opportunity for the board. But also, if we're a member of CUBE, we get 20% discount for NSBA attendance. So if someone could look into that, that would be great. The CUBE conference this year is October, at the end of October in Las Vegas. NSBA, the National School Board Association, is April of next year in Atlanta. And that's all I have. Great things are happening in Battle Creek Public Schools.
Any other board member comments? I'd like to thank the audience that's here. Thank you so much for coming out. We appreciate that. Nothing else. This meeting's adjourned. Waiting for the lights to go off.
Unplug it.
Looking up because I thought up there was